So,
I have a team group that I'm trying
oh
to help
yeah.
the teens learn about this stuff. And if I have enough interest and enough people who want their kids in there, I'll start another one. So age groups, whatever, reach out, let me know. Because this is basically what I teach the kids. I teach them about regulating their nervous system so that they can respond appropriately in any situation, and they're not looking for other people to validate them or regulate them. Right. So we all need to learn how to do this.
So important.
Hey, MOMnation. Welcome to Mental Wealth with Laura Wood and Katie Holly Lambert, where we talk through generational trauma so we can leave a new legacy for our children. Counselor Laura is with Benavieri Counseling out of Chandler, Arizona, and you can find her on Facebook, on the web, or by the link in the show notes. We hope you enjoy the show.
What's up, Mom Nation? We are
Hey.
back with March's episode of Mental Wealth, where we work on ourselves so that we can leave behind a new legacy, right, Laura?
That's right. I love it.
It's so important because we don't want our parents' junk, and then we don't want to give our kids our junk so that they have to deal with it. In this world, there's enough junk. They don't need ours.
There's so much. It's so true. But if we don't do it on purpose, it doesn't get done. So we've got to pay attention, be mindful, think about how our behaviors are going to be different than what we experienced growing up so that we can stop these cycles. Otherwise, we're just going to keep looping and looping and looping. It's what we do.
It's so, so true. And we might not even realize that we're looping, right? Like we might not even, it's because we're just like going through everyday life, and it's muscle memory,
Right.
and it's groceries and work and school and all of that. And we're not really realizing that, hey, I sound a lot like my mother right now.
So yeah, I mean, it's on autopilot, right? So autopilot, sort of our default network, we're just going, we have to engage and say, no, manual override time. I'm going to do this on purpose. I'm going to make a choice, not just do whatever my system is telling me to do because I'm not thinking.
Right. And now tell me if I'm right here. So I learned this the other day, and I think it learned it right. So you, when you're younger, you kind of like, there's maps happening up in here, right? And it becomes automatic, right? So these are my automatic behaviors. These are my automatic triggers, whatever. And there's like, and the more that we go down that road, like the deeper the mapping becomes, right? But you can actually create new maps.
Definitely.
Or new roads, right? Am I explaining that right?
I think you're explaining it great. It's neuroplasticity. So the concept that our personalities are fixed and our minds are fixed, like at a certain age, we used to believe that, right? We used to think that we couldn't change, but we can. We can change these maps, and we can change these paths that we've created over time, and build new ones, build new pathways, build new connections in our mind. So everything is treatable, right? Like when we think about our behaviors that we've learned, our reactions, and our worldview, those are all learned things. They come from how we've experienced the world and been taught to handle things. So we can change that by learning how to do it differently. It takes intention, though. That's where we do it on purpose.
Right. And that's where this show comes in. So
yeah,
it's me and Laura. We're back again, like I just said, with Mental Wealth. This is our show where we work on ourselves. And we were talking earlier today, and we were thinking, okay, well, what do we want to do the show on? Because normally we will look at, not always, but normally we will look at an anonymous posting in the group. We do get a lot of anonymous posts. We love that. Thank you, ladies, very much for doing that and for reaching out. We really appreciate it. And we hope that the feedback that you get, and when we do choose your post on this show to talk about it, we hope that that's really, really helpful for you. But we decided to kind of go a little different direction and just pick a topic today. And so, Laura, tell me a little bit about why you chose this topic for today.
Well, I was having a conversation with a colleague who works in a different area of mental health, and we were sort of talking about kids, and there's so many kids right now who are experiencing mental health issues. Like this has increased so much, right? Like we are seeing, an exponentially larger number of kids with anxiety, with depression, with suicidal thoughts. And it's just really, really a big deal. and we need to take it seriously. And I was thinking about how this stuff was treated in the 80s, right? Like when we may or may not have been kids, but so how this was treated back then, behaviors were really, it was about like a token economy, like rewards and punishment. And there was no emotion, feeling, talking, right? It was just sort of like, do this thing. I'm your parent. Like, just listen to me. Like, it was very autocratic. And so for parents now, because we're parents now, we don't always understand the emotional needs of our children. And then it kind of got me realizing, like, well, we often resent the emotional needs of our children, don't we? Have we ever said, like, who among us has said, when I was a kid, like, my mom didn't give me a hug or tell me it was going to be okay. Like, if I didn't want to go to school, she would, pour a cup of water on my face and make me go, or I would be grounded for the rest of my life, or she would. Exactly. So it's like, we have these stories of these like really harsh, like black and white dictator parents. And we sort of get like annoyed with our kids for like needing things from us. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And maybe that's not true for everyone, but it's true for me, right? Like I sort of had this, like, it's what we call defense against attachment cry, actually, because it's sort of this concept that, well, I didn't get that, so you don't get it either. Mm-hmm. Right. And like, well, I turned out fine. And I'm like, well, did I? I've been in therapy for like, right? Like, how much therapy have I had? Did I really, like, sure, I'm fine, right? Like, we're okay. I'm a functional adult. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm okay. Right. But I don't think that it would be a bad idea for us to start looking at, why do we resent our kids for having emotional needs? And what is going on for us that, like, sort of, we hold these grudges against our kids. We feel really hurt by them. We feel really like, we sort of are like annoyed with them for being like grumpy or for being whatever. And I hear a lot like that our kids are like, I've heard parents who have described their kids as like abusive towards them, and who, like when kids act out, like we take it personally. Right. Like we take it really personally and it hurts our feelings. And then that kind of like triggers this response in us to like be mad at them and then like not want to care for them. Right. Like, I don't even want to feed you right now. Like, why would I want to make you dinner if you're going to be rude all day? Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, fair.
Or I don't want to see you, go to your room kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, I can't even look at your face. Totally. Like, that's such a good, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I hear that too. Like, I don't even want to look at you right now. Like, I can't even look at your face. Like, if you're going to, like, I don't want you around if you're going to be like this, or if you're going to have this attitude or whatever. And so like, innately, I get those things, but it just sort of got me thinking, like, where is that coming from? Like, why am I being such a jerk? Mm-hmm. And how can I sort of like channel something different so that I don't treat my kids so badly? Like, that's rude, right? Like, it's objectively rude to say that to a person. And yet we often just say that stuff to our kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it prolongs
and we don't
the
even
cycle.
Think. Well, right. But like the most like crazy thing to me is like, we don't even notice it. Mm-hmm. We don't even think that we're doing it. We don't even notice. We don't even think about how our kids feel. Most of the time when we say stuff like that, we just like brush it off. Like, they're going to know that I love them. Mm-hmm. Right. They're not going, like, we're just assuming that they're going to just know that I'm here for them, that I love them. Like, of course I wouldn't really like kick them out. Right. Of course I wouldn't really, but like, I don't know why we don't always realize that our kids are like humans with feelings. I mean, I think I know why, based on like as I've been sort of like reflecting, it's about the disconnect because it's a defensive strategy.
Mm-hmm.
It's my feelings are hurt. I feel bad. I feel helpless. And so I'm going to like defend against my kid. So now the kid is the enemy, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's me or them. And so I'm sort of acting out to like win. I want to beat them. I want to hurt them. I want them to feel bad because then they can know how bad I feel. Right. Like, so that kind of, that reaction is indicative of like a traumatic response. That's a childhood trauma response. So if we didn't get our needs met when we were kids, it makes it really hard for us to stay present in the moment when our kids are sort of acting out. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so sort of having some conversations with some colleagues about this and just really noticing this really serious crisis that our kids are going through. And I think we need to think about that a little bit further, right? Like we need to think harder about how our words have an impact on our children.
Well, and hello, Rachel. Rachel's on. Hey guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I am watching the comments. But it's not only the impact right now, but it's the impact for later. So in your scenario, like you react to hurt back, push them away. You're not sharing, hey, it really hurts my feelings that you treated me like that, or you said that, or you did whatever they did, that was rude or disrespectful, or what you considered rude or disrespectful. So you're not, obviously we've talked about this before, obviously not remaining in your window. And then saying, hey, that really hurts my feelings, or you probably wouldn't appreciate it if I treated you like that. So let's kind of have this, this understanding, this boundary here where we're cool with each other, and I'll share with you when I feel hurt, and you do the same. Because if we don't share and teach them, hey, mom feels hurt, mom feels like that just wasn't a very nice thing, and then are they getting in that habit of sharing their feelings when they're hurt and they're in your shoes, maybe when they're a parent later on in life, or when they're a spouse later on in life? Are they now doing that to their spouse,
Yeah, for sure. It's teaching them that emotions are scary and bad, right? Like it's teaching them that needs are inconvenient for others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like if my kid has a need and is like emotional or like feeling whatever, because I hear this all the time, like all these kids today with their feelings and like everybody's emotional, like they're all very like mental health is a really big conversation among teenagers and adolescents now. And it wasn't when we were young. And so it's just a very big difference between how these kids are talking and how we really learned growing up. And so if we are reacting in a way that's like negative and rejecting when our kids are emotional or our kids are dysregulated because we can't handle it, then it's teaching them not to talk to us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's teaching them that we can't handle that there's something bad about them, because even like my own mom doesn't want to hang out with me.
Mm-hmm.
My own mom doesn't even like me. Like who in the world would like me then? Right? Like the one person that's supposed to like care about me the most is like thinks I suck. Like
that's tough because they're kids. Yeah. They haven't been through a lot of life. They're not experienced. They don't know to talk themselves out of that,
That's right. And so if we react with rejection instead of like, whoa, I see you're really upset, let's take a beat here, and whatever's going on, we can work through it. Right. And then we can also even say things like, hey, I see you're really upset. Let's take a beat. Let's take a break. And then later on, when we're like going through whatever's happening, like, hey, I'm here for you. And it's important to know, like, no matter how upset you get, it doesn't give you the right to hurt another person.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to teach our kids like to be considerate and to be like thoughtful of others. And yet when we are triggered as parents, often we don't do that. We don't execute on that.
Right.
And then we don't apologize because of our generation's sort of like, we get I feel like we're kind of like egotistical in that way, where it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to apologize to my kid because then they're going to think that they can walk all over me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever felt like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, they're the kid, like they just have to deal with everything. Like, but we're really not treating them like a human, you know? And I think a lot of it is just, we're acting out our own stuff.
And I think what you said is really important about the generations, because thinking back to like our parents' generation was totally different, right? And so it's important, I think, as a parent to realize, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, to realize that it's not like it was when we were kids. Things are different. They're having different experiences. They have different fears. They have different worries. They have different different expectations of them. It's like so totally different. So you can't apply the rules from the 80s when we may or may not have been kids to now. You can't do that. It just doesn't work. It doesn't match.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a good point. Like, times were different, but we had less information. We had less freedom. We had less worry, right? Because kids have access to way too much content without enough context. So they have no frame of reference for what's happening. They basically think that like the world is going to end at any moment. Like, I've had kids tell me like, there's no point. Like, what's even going to be, what is there going to be for me out there in the world when I am an adult? Like, you know, there's wars, there's, you know, the climate, there's all these like, so like all these things that we're kind of hearing in the news, right? Like the education and, you know, this and that and whatever. They're like, why though? Like, what's even the point? Like, they're so overwhelmed by this content that are really just like headlines. It's not always affecting your day-to-day life, right? Like, there's important things to be mindful of, whether you're following current events and stuff, but it doesn't, as adults, we can know like, okay, but that's not, right? Like, it's not an emergency. We're okay. We're safe.
Right. We know that negative news sells, you know, for the last couple of decades that I've been an adult. I know that. And I know that, you know, it's clickbait. And I know that, there are things to pay attention to for sure. I'm not saying don't, but is it really as alarming in real life as they make it out to be online, just so that they can sell, you know, a couple ads or whatever?
Yeah. And these kids, they don't know that. They don't understand the context. And so they're just like, oh my gosh, like the world is a total disaster and everybody's a jerk. And I don't know what is even out there for me. And, you know, whenever I have like, sometimes I feel really sad or sometimes I feel really scared, but like when I go to tell my parents, they're just like, that's stupid, or it's not a big deal. Or they always just like tell me that I'm like overreacting. So I don't really know what to do. Right. Like,
that's an isolating place.
Yeah. Super isolating. And so when we have kids who are feeling isolated, they feel very, very sort of, I don't know what the right word is, like disconnected, but also like hopeless.
Yeah.
Right. Like when we start to isolate and we don't feel like we feel really alone and we feel like there's no point, there's no help out there, there's nothing coming. And aloneness increases. And when I say aloneness, it's not just about like free talk. Like, if your kids don't talk to you about their problems, like, okay, that doesn't matter. Like, just sit with them in silence. Like, it doesn't matter. But just the connection of, they don't have to necessarily like tell you everything that's on their mind, but they need to know that you're there and that you are going to meet them with compassion. And you're going to be there for them. And you're going to say, like, you're going to take them seriously, right? Like, you're not going to minimize what they're saying. You're not going to tell them that they're wrong for being upset or hurt or scared. You're going to say like, hey, wow, I'm sorry that you're feeling like that. You know, whatever happens in this world, like, I've got you. We're going to get through it together. Sometimes we do hear about scary stuff and it's really hard.
Well, and I remember my feelings as a kid, and because I didn't have that adult experience, because, you know, I was pretty fresh to the world, things seemed really big to me that I look back on and I'm like, holy crap, girl, you really shouldn't have lost any sleep over that one. But things seem really big, and they're dealing with a lot of big feelings and a lot of big things right now.
Yeah. And we forget, I think, a lot of the time, like we get so wrapped up in our own stuff that the kids' stuff doesn't seem big.
Right.
So we say things like, that doesn't even matter.
Right.
Like, why are you have nothing to be anxious about. You have nothing to complain about. Like, your life is great. And then sometimes when we're like really like what we kind of talked about earlier, like a parent who's experienced their own trauma, attachment trauma, specifically in developmental trauma, that can ignite a trigger, right? That can sort of create an enactment where not only do we say like, well, you have nothing to be anxious about, but we also add on the sentence of, I do everything for you. Right? Like, I've given you this life, like I've done all these things for you, and you're just acting like you have a bad attitude, and you act like you're just like, you don't have anything good. And like, that hurts our feelings. We take that personally. Right? So when we start to take that personally, that's when the harm starts to happen. That's when the damage is done, when we take those things personally and we sort of blame our kids for not knowing how good we are to them.
Yeah.
For not recognizing how great of a parent we are, or how hard we're working, or how, like, especially I can relate to this as a single mom, right? Like, I literally do everything. Like, I remember feeling that way. Like, God, I am doing so much.
Like,
it's
don't
all
they see
falling
it?
on me. Right.
Yeah.
Like, don't, like, give me a break. Right. Because I have 3 kids. Somebody was always upset about something.
Yeah.
And so I remember feeling that way. Right. And so, when my kids were really little, I would go on my patio after everybody went to bed, it's 10 o'clock at night, and I'd be on the phone with a friend, just like, geez, I feel like crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would kind of work through that and just vent about it, because it's really hard. And I think that's the most important part, is to know it's okay to have those feelings, and that we need to get our support as adults from other adults. So the telling our kids like, well, do you know how much I do for you? Like, you have it so good, da, 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 da. Like, I'm doing all these things for you, like, and you're still unhappy. Like, you're so ungrateful. That's about us.
Right.
Saying those things is an effort to regulate ourselves. We are trying to get our needs met. Right.
We're trying to justify our position almost.
That's right. We're trying to be seen. We're trying to be heard. We're trying to be validated. Right. But that's not okay. That's not okay to do as an adult with your child, because what's happening is your child came to you for validation, and you said, your needs don't matter. My needs matter. So I need you now to validate me. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a helpful, caring person to you. And your life is going to be miserable and harder, because I'm going to take that out on you. I'm going to hold a grudge against you for not validating me. And so then your kid is now feeling like, well, what about me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they start to disrespect you. That's when they start to resent you. That's when they start to be mean to you, right? Mm-hmm. So it's this cycle, because they're feeling the same way you're feeling. They're mm-hmm. feeling, I'm not being validated. No one sees me. No one cares about my feelings, right? So they're looking to you to give them that. And you're looking to them to give them that, or to give you that. And so that is this sort of what I call a traumatic, I don't just call it that, we call it that in the field, a traumatic reenactment that is harming your child. It's your own stuff trying to resolve an emotional need that wasn't met for you as a child. Mm-hmm. And that's why we repeat these cycles.
Well, we've said this, I think, a bunch on this show, and I know that in our private conversations, we've said it before too, is that hurt people. And so that's the underlying layer So obviously, if your kid is, outwardly treating you with disrespect, being rude, being mean, yelling at you, calling you names, blah, blah, like the whole gamut, then that underlying layer is hurt feelings or
They're hurt.
something's hurt in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I've had my kids say to me, I hate you. My kids are 17, 15, and 19.
Oh, dear.
And they're all boys, and I raise them alone. And I mean, with help from like my village, right? But largely by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times where I was just tired.
Yeah.
And I would just kind of lose my shit, right? And I wasn't, sorry, I try not to swear.
No, you can swear.
Anyway, we have to put the little explicit mark on it. Anyway.
We got it.
So, right. You don't do a podcast with me without like making sure you already put the explicit sign on it.
Not for kids. Click.
So anyway, you don't raise three boys without losing it a couple of times, right? So there have been times where I've really just engaged in those screaming matches with my kids, where I've lost it and just been too tired to really stay grounded and handle it. And it hurts. It's hard. And then you feel like crap after, obviously. When everything calms down, you regret it. And then, you have to figure out how to deal with that. But the pain that they generate in us when we hear those words or when we see that struggle is a lot of the time reminiscent of how we felt as kids toward our parents. So that ignites this sort of sense of ourselves that it's a different type, like we sort of almost assume the job of the child.
Mm-hmm.
And we almost start to see that child as a peer. And we start to feel like, well, if you're not getting what you need, like, or if I'm not getting what I need, like, you're definitely not getting what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is hopeless. So you're sort of giving up. You're giving up your adult role. You're giving up your parenting role. You're giving up your leadership role. And you're basically feeling like a helpless child. And so that feeling will often, without a mindful intervention on our part to like get grounded and get back in our window, it will just take us out and it will cause us to do harm. And so that's why if you have experienced developmental trauma, meaning early childhood attachment trauma, relational challenges with your parent, anything like that as a kid, it can be really, really hard for you to respond well when your child is exhibiting signs of those same things, exhibiting signs of isolation, exhibiting signs of having more emotional needs than you would feel capable of meeting. So it's that trauma that makes it hard for you to respond well. And so that's where this generation kind of keeps going.
Mm-hmm. But you can stop that, obviously.
Totally.
But it's never too late. And I feel like you can even stop that in the moment or after the fact. So let's just say you come out of your window, you're triggered, you're having the screaming match, kind of like what you just described. And then you figure it out. You're like, whoa, out of my window. Hold on. That wasn't the right thing for me to do. And like, confess this to your child. That wasn't the right way, right thing for me to do. I apologize. I was outside of my window, or however you describe that to your kid. Let's begin again. And even if it's after the fact, like if you continue to do that, I feel like it's less and less. It happens less and less, right? Because you're maybe even now able to catch it after the first sentence you screamed, and then maybe you're able to catch it before the scream comes out. Like,
totally.
Talking about that remapping again.
You're 100% right about that. When we say it out loud, we're telling ourselves that it's real. We're acknowledging it within ourselves. We're knowing now that that impacted us. And we're owning up to the fact that it's not okay to treat kids that way.
Right.
And maybe that means, so here's why we sometimes don't want to know that. Because that means that when we were a kid, adults in our life didn't treat us the way we deserve to be treated.
Yep.
And that makes us feel very upset. So that sort of initiates a grief process between our sort of idealized childhoods or our glossed over childhoods, like our I didn't experience any trauma childhoods. And it sort of changes that for us. And so that's a lot of the reason why we don't want to accept that. So a lot of the things that keep us from apologizing are our own unhealed stuff, saying, I don't want to know, I'm not ready to know that my childhood wasn't as good as I thought. Yeah. And that maybe I was hurt, and it matters.
And that's tough for our generation to admit.
It is. It is. It's so hard to truly feel, let me say that differently. It's so hard to truly know that you were hurt by someone who was supposed to care for you and that you deserved better. And they did it. They did that. They had a choice and they did that.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurt you. It's really hard for us to know that, for us to recognize that, because that raises questions about our relationships with our parents today.
Mm-hmm.
That often makes us feel guilty because we have this narrative in our mind of like, but I'm grateful for my parents. They sacrificed everything. Both can be true.
Mm-hmm.
I can be grateful and love my parents and have a great relationship with them now. And I can know that some of the things that happened when I was a kid, that the times that I needed help and I didn't get help, or the times that I asked for help and I was rejected or whatever, those really hurt me. And guess what? It shaped your personality.
Yes, it did.
It did. And it can't not. We pretend it doesn't.
And
that doesn't matter a long time ago. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And it's not just your parenting style. It's not just your relationship with your parents. It's your relationship with everyone.
Yeah. With everyone. And so it's hard for us to admit that, right? And so about half of us, about half the population has a form of attachment from childhood that was not secure. About half of people have a secure attachment history, which allows them the safe attunement, the safe conflict. So secure attachment allows you to experience conflict and disagreement in a safe way where you still feel valued and respected. That's it. You feel like you're valued and respected. You feel like you matter. You feel like you're cared for. And you can make mistakes and the other person can make mistakes and securely connect still. Mm-hmm. So about half of us live in that world. The rest of us don't. I didn't. Right. My kids didn't until until I did my own work.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the past 20 years that I've been a mom, there were times in the beginning when I didn't know any of this because it was 20 years ago. And when I took my child who was angry, and had outbursts to a therapist, they said, well, your parenting is bad. You're the problem, right? But they didn't say it to me in a way that was hey, did you realize that you may have experienced trauma that impacts your ability to attune and connect with your child?
They just blamed you.
Yeah. They were just you're making bad choices, lady.
That's
so you know
gross.
What I did?
That feels gross.
That feels bad. I didn't feel good. Do you know what I did? I yelled at her and I left. And my kid didn't get help because of me, because I felt hurt. That was about me. That was about my stuff. And so my stuff was getting in the way of helping my child regulate himself. And so once I learned all this stuff and did my own work, I also worked to repair that with my child. And now my kids have a secure attachment with me. They feel safe. They I feel safe. I know when I mess up and I say, you know what, that was really not okay for me to yell at you. I was feeling stressed out and I got overwhelmed. And instead of taking a break before I responded to you, I responded rudely. And that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not your fault, because you have every right to ask me a question. Right. I'm your mom. Like, you have every right to come to me and ask me a question. And the fact that I was overwhelmed at the time made it so that I didn't do a good job of responding to you. And that's about me. That was not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I can say that.
And it's teaching them to conduct their relationships in that way too. That's and right. How beautiful would it be if absolutely everybody in the world, I know this is a crazy dream, but if absolutely everybody in the world responded that way. Like, think about what social media would look like.
I think it would be incredible, because hurt people.
Right. Right.
Securely attached people don't.
Right.
And so if you don't feel safe apologizing to your child when you make a mistake, if you don't feel like you are in control of your own nervous system when you're experiencing conflict, if you're avoiding your child because you're afraid of how they're going to react, and you don't want to discipline them because you don't want to have a fight, those are indications that you're experiencing a traumatic response and that your nervous system is in a fight or flight state.
Mm-hmm. And there are physical cues to that too.
Definitely.
You know, let's list some off. Maybe your palms get sweaty, maybe your armpits get a little bit sweaty, your heart starts to beat.
Face gets hot.
Yeah. Those kind of things. And so that's when, it's been a while for me, so I'm better at recognizing things than I was many moons ago. But those were kinds of things that I had to pay attention to. And I'm like, oh, okay, triggered, and I'm in fight or flight because I didn't realize what my triggers were yet.
Right. And so mine for me was exhaustion. I was just like, I'm done. Not going to deal with it. I'm going to bed. Right. And so I thought, and these triggers can be tricky. These responses can be tricky because they can sound like they're ecologically appropriate, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a single mom with 3 kids. I'm in college full time and I work a full-time job.
Of course I'm tired. Yeah.
Right. But that tired, I had to really be honest with myself about, is this tired because I'm literally tired, or is this tired because I'm avoiding? And so we all have a natural sort of go-to response. Some of us regulate down, right? And just check out. That's what I'm like, goodbye. Mm-hmm. Like, some of us regulate up and start to panic, right? Mm-hmm. So, and we all do both a little bit, right? But some of us, we kind of have some defaults, right? We have it's more common for me to down regulate. That's my go-to. And so when I know that, I can check in like, man, I've been sleeping a lot lately. Right? Like, I've been wanting to go to bed early. Right? Those are signs for me. Like, maybe I'm getting overwhelmed. Maybe I've got to check in on my stress levels. Maybe I need to schedule a self-care day. Maybe I need to schedule a dinner with a friend. Mm-hmm. I need some energy. I need to be rejuvenated because I'm starting to shut down. I can tell because I've tried to figure it out. And I didn't always know. And I didn't always know that was okay. I think I had a lot of shame.
Yeah. Especially as women, I think we do. We carry a lot.
Yeah, I don't think I had. I know I had a lot of shame. I know I had a lot of shame about, like, I should be able to do everything. Mm-hmm. I should be able to work a full-time job, go to college full-time, and then come home and clean my whole house and cook a beautiful dinner for all 3 of my kids without any support, financially or personally or whatever. Like, I'm the I'm doing it all. I should be able to do that.
We forget we're human.
What? Right? Like, why am I telling myself that lie? Why am I doing that? I don't know, but I did. And I did it for a long time. And so that really perpetuated a lot of my feelings of inadequacy and helplessness.
Well, and I feel like when we're in that too, like we're in the fight or flight, or we're doing the shutdown, like it snowballs. So things that may not have thrown you, may not have triggered you or triggered you as badly is now more frequent and it's more severe. So it's like creating this sort of snowball effect, right?
Yeah, it's feeding itself. And it feels like we can't get out of it. And feelings are not facts.
Right.
But it feels hopeless. It feels helpless. We can get into those cycles. And so when we're there, our kids start demonstrating that they need us more. Because our detachment signals a threat to them. So the more stressed and overwhelmed we are, the more they're going to try to need us, right? They're trying to connect with us. They're going to try to get us to connect with them. And the more they feel that they're not able to connect with us, that we're not there for them, the more they feel like we're distant, they will then start to act out. So at first they'll start to like ask us for things. We're going to reject them because we're feeling our feelings and we're not able to regulate ourselves. So we reject them. And then instead of asking for us for stuff, they push us away. They get mean. And then that makes it worse. And we get mean back. So now we're in this whole thing. And we are the ones that are in charge of stopping it, not them.
Do you think that the mean behavior is almost opposite of what, like their intent is almost opposite of what the delivery is? It's almost like a cry for help type thing. Like, no, I really need you.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the opposite. They're going to come at us in a way that is like the opposite of what they want from us. And so it's confusing for us. And I hear this all the time from moms, and I felt this way too. Like, well, if they needed me so much, like, why are they being such a jerk? Like, and it's confused. It's dichotomous, right? So this counterintuitive fight is actually, it's a protective strategy. Has anybody ever done this in their adult relationship? Got a little too close, felt kind of scared, started feeling rejected, pushed them away, self-sabotage. That's what your kids are doing. That's what your kids are doing when they're mean to you. It's they're scared. They feel alone, rejected, and out of control. They're looking for you to say like, hey, I have calm, like they want calm confidence. They want from you to say like, I see you and I've got you. And no matter how you behave, I will always care for you. No matter how you think or act or talk, I'm always going to keep you safe, and I'm always going to take care of you, and I'm always going to love you. And we're going to learn ways to communicate effectively, appropriately. Well, because it's not okay for us to hurt others when we're hurt.
Right. And as a parent, I feel like that's our place to teach. That, totally. I know you've said not everything's a teaching moment, but sometimes, right?
Yes.
And that's our place to teach. Hey, like I get that you're having these overwhelming feelings. Maybe let's try a different way of getting that out instead of the way that you're choosing right now, because it doesn't make anybody feel good. You don't feel good and I don't feel good. And that's not like, it's not conducive to getting to the bottom of it or fixing it or, even getting like closer as
Mhm.
your relationship getting closer, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like I love just simple, like, hey, I see that you're experiencing these overwhelming feelings, and I'm here for you. And I'm never gonna like abandon you. I'm with you in this. And I'm gonna ask you to take a deep breath because it's not okay to hurt other people, to yell and scream, or to, call names when even though you're overwhelmed. So I've got you. And we're going to do this. So we're going to just take a quiet moment and then we can work through this together.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not healthy for them to be in
No,
that
it's not
spot.
okay.
They're putting their body through stress. They're putting themselves in fight or flight. And what does that do, especially over time? I just learned about this too. What does that do to you physically? That can start, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but if your body's been in fight or flight for long enough and it's severe enough, your organs will start being affected by that. And then your organs will not react appropriately, like your digestion. So, sometimes when we have digestion issues or stomach problems and things like that, and the doctors can't figure out what's going on with it, that could very well be a factor.
Yeah, it certainly is. A lot of autoimmune disorders are associated with chronic toxic stress because our body is trying to regulate. So our body is trying to solve it. Our body is trying to either run away or survive or downregulate or calm down or like detach. Like our body's doing all these things that it doesn't need to do. And so all that energy is going to these things that are just unnecessary, they're wasteful processes.
Right.
And so the rest of our stuff isn't getting the attention that it needs. Our healthy system, right, isn't operating. So like our immune system gets out of whack, because it doesn't have enough energy to operate properly. Our, organs start to not function properly because we're deprioritizing certain things that we wouldn't need if we were in danger, truly. Our digestive system is one of the first things to go because if you're in danger, it's not going to help you to stop to pee.
Right.
Or take a number 2. So all that stuff is going to stop.
Which then affects you even more because now your body's not eliminating toxins like it's supposed to.
Yep. And then your gut bacteria is all off and then everything. So like we could go on for days about how connected this stuff is. Because we're an organism. Humans are a living organism. We're not just a thinking brain.
Right.
And so as an organism, our bodies need to do certain processes in order for us to optimize, in order for us to be as effective as we can. And if we're chronically in a state of fight or flight, which is experiencing imminent danger, it's not going to be able to do that. It's not. And so I think I almost want to to summarize, right? Like if your kid is disrespectful, if you're feeling like your kid is mean to you, if you're being triggered, if you're starting to feel resentment towards your kid, if you're starting to feel like, well, what about me? If you're feeling like your kid's hurt your feeling, like if you feel like your kid is intentionally like hurting your feelings, you've got some stuff running that's making it really hard for you to help your kid behave better. So the antidote here, if you want your kid to stop being disrespectful, to start respecting you, to start treating you well, that's when in order to get that to happen, you've got to experience a regulated nervous system. You've got to make sure that you have a sound sense of safety within yourself so that you can maintain that leadership role. And then when you're feeling upset and hurt and sad and all of those feelings that you're allowed to feel, you've got adult support systems to help you through them. Because it's not okay to ask our kids to regulate us. It's not okay for us to ask our kids to meet those emotional needs. We need to move through that with an adult, with a therapist, with a friend, with a partner, whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely not the kid's spot. And, I've had experience with that where it was an expectation of me as a child to act like be an adult almost. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, you're fresh on this earth and you don't have much experience. And there's a reason why kids are kids and they have to go through this, period of growth and period of experience in order to get to that point. And they can't handle that. It's too heavy for them, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So,
yeah. And they need you for the whole 18.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole 18.
Well, this was a good talk, Laura.
Thank you.
I love it. I love the topic. I love that we went a little bit different than what we normally do.
Yeah, I loved this. And I feel like I loved your examples. Like, where are you learning all this cool stuff that you're coming up with right now?
Thanks. I've been in therapy for 100 years.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. I always tell my clients, like, and my friends, like, the difference between me and you is just that I've had more therapy. Like, that's the only reason why I know any of this shit is because I've had more therapy.
It's so true. It's not taught in school. I mean, heck no. It's
not.
So
I have a team group that I'm trying to help the teens learn about this stuff. And if I have enough interest and enough people who want their kids in there, I'll start another one. So age groups, whatever, reach out, let me know. Because this is basically what I teach the kids. I teach them about regulating their nervous system so that they can respond appropriately in any situation. And they're not looking for other people to validate them or regulate them. Right. So we all need to learn how to do this.
So important. So important. I'm so glad that you brought up the teen group. I know that we put it on our calendar for MOMnation. The last one you had, I think it was a couple days ago. And so we will be continuing to put that out there on our events calendar for anybody out there that's interested in connecting with Laura. Her contact information is here in the show notes, or you can hook up with her team. If you have a teen, you can hook up with her teen group. And, she may have other things up her sleeve. I don't know. I'll let her share that as she wishes to. But thank you so much for being here with us. Of course, again.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This is like the best thing ever.
I know it's kind of therapeutic for both of us, isn't it?
It is. And I hope that at least one mom realizes that she deserves to sort through her trauma. And if she feels like she's not doing a good job, it's not her fault. She's got stuff.
It's true. It's true. And it's okay if you have stuff. It really is. I mean, Laura has had stuff. I've had stuff. Everybody does. And it is okay because we are human beings. And that's what, it's all about learning and growing and being better than you were the day before, honestly, is kind of how I look at it.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
All right, guys, if you want to connect with any of our previous shows, we are in our second year, believe it or not. It's crazy. It goes by so fast. I know. We are in our second year. Hop on over to our YouTube channel. It is at MOMnation USA. That is our handle. If you are more of the podcast type, maybe you run a lot, bike a lot, swim a lot, whatever. Well, swim. I don't know if you can listen to it while you're swimming, but maybe, there's probably some waterproof earbuds out there somewhere. I'm sure there is. But head on over to your favorite podcast platform and do a search for MOMnation Talk Radio. That will pull up our channel. All of our shows are put through that channel, including Mental Wealth with the lovely Laura. Until next time, my friend.
Thank you so much. I will see you soon. Bye.